Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night. So, this is going to be a, well, I say brief, but anyone who's watched any of my videos know I tend to ramble. Review discussion about the Eternals, or Eternals, Marvel's Eternals, which I just saw a couple hours ago. So, there hasn't been a lot of processing, and this I'll begin by saying this. First of all, like I said, general kind of review, and near the end of it, um, there will be some spoilers. So I will make that known so everyone knows. But as I put on my Instagram slash Facebook post, this is a very different Marvel movie for fans of the MCU or comic book movies in general. Um, you know, in the after it had its red carpet premiere, I saw a couple YouTubers compared to Dune in the sense that it's very dense, and that it is. And having watching this, I mean, I'm not saying it's by no means a bad film. Not one that I'm just like, oh my god, that was such an amazing film either, because it's so different than again the normal MCU fare. Like I said, seriously, other than a few certain connections, well, I mean, well, not few connections, except for certain things within the framing, this could be named something else, and it would be an interesting sci-fi kind of documentary esque, not documentary, indie film type of thing. And again, it's directed by Chloe Zhao, who that's the type of director she is. I still haven't watched Nomadland yet, but I need to at some point. That being said, so a brief summary of the Eternals, which yeah, as a comic fan, I've known of the Eternals. I've just never known deep into the Eternal lore, or a lot about them until recently. My main knowledge of the Eternals up until the last couple years when they were first announced. Well, over the last years in comics where they kind of brought them back, was mainly Circe, who is kind of the crux of this movie, if you will, the main Eternal, um, as she was a member of the Avengers. And of course, there's a relationship with the Black Knight, which they have a kind of version in here, or Dane Whitman, who we'll talk about later. Um, but I mean, I knew what the Eternals were as far as a group of mortal beings, yada yada yada. But like that was about it, just the general, very general view, which basically people would know after watching the first trailer, because or second trailer, because that's what Cersei says. Um, Now that being said, and as I've learned a little bit more of Eternals, again, this movie is very different than an Iron Man, or any of the Phase ones, or even say a Guardians of the Galaxy, or an Endgame, Infinity War and Endgame. But again, it is still very much a Marvel movie. Um, so that being said, main story of the Eternals, as you see right down there. They're a group of beings that, um, immortal beings that have been on Earth, MCU wise, for 7,000 years, that were sent here for the purpose of watching after humanity, and you know, kind of subtly guiding them, but not like directly interfering. Which is that was one of the big questions people had going into it, and it's addressed. I know not. I mean, it's addressed in the trailer actually, and uh, they touch on it maybe like one or two other times very briefly. Don't really go deep into it because it's not they were told not to basically. Um, and like I said, this starts like I said 7,000 years in or 5,000 BC, um, and what becomes Mesopotamia, and the cradle of civilization, as our human history records. And I mean, I did enjoy the way throughout the movies we had flashes back to you know, to Babylon, which is, I guess the first major city in humanity that they were part of, and then just, glimpses through various parts of history. I mean, where these characters have been involved. And honestly, I would have loved to see a lot more of that. I was hoping for a lot more of that. But again, there's only so much you can do, and the story was what the story was. So if we do get Eternals 2, which of course, as all things, depends on what Kevin Feige's plan is and how much money makes. I would like a couple more of those flashbacks just to, flesh it out a little bit more, or, maybe in other movies somehow in there as well. But okay, so you have your main Eternals against looking at that picture right down there, which we will go from. Trying to get my bearings. There we go. What is my left to right? So you're right to left. First, we have Kumail Nanjiani, who plays Kingo, um, who had a lot of the comic moment. I mean, of course, as Marvel does, they have jokes in here and there, and a lot of it comes from Kumail Nanjiani, who through the years has become this great Bollywood actor and everything. Then we have Makari, which I'm forgetting the actress's name at the moment. Um, Next to her, uh, Druig, because I keep wanting to say Druid, of course, but Druig, um, who kind of has the ability of mind control. The little one next to him is Sprite, who can cast illusions. Then we have the lovely, wonderful Selma Hayek as Ajak, Gemma Chan as Cersei, who, like I said, is kind of the crux of the movie, the main Eternal, if you will. Um, Richard Madsen, Rob Stark as Icarus. Uh, I guess you could say the main brawn of it, where Ajak is, as you see at the beginning of the movie, the leader, and through other events, um, Cersei, who again, as I said, basically the main fight becomes the leader through circumstances, which we'll talk about later. You know, Icarus is still mainly just the Superman-ish type character. The brawn to their not brains, but brains obviously, but more their leadership. He's their first in command, if you will. Um, then we have Don Lee, who is Gilgamesh. Um, his powers. I still quite didn't understand. I mean, of course, the energy, which all of them, as Eternals, they harness cosmic energy, for various things. As I forgot, Makari, and the Eternals, of course, they think they come from a planet called Olympia, which supposed to be kind of an equivalent to basically what the old Roman and Greek myths were made from. So, like Makari is Mercury, if you're thinking about that way. Sprite is, I mean, there is an actual character sprite, if I remember right. Um, uh, and Ajax basically heals. Cersei can transmute matter from any into anything, basically. As I said, Richard Madden Icarus's character, kind of a Superman, can fly, has beams that comes from his eyes. Um, and okay, so I was going to say, so Gilgamesh, Don Lee, like he makes these like energy gloves, and then at some points he stomps like an energy boot. So I guess it's just it gives some added power in the way he uses. Then we have Angelina Jolie, who is Athena, and like I said, mythology wise, Athena, the goddess of war, if you will, who can make weapons out of the energy. And the way Angelina uh, Jolie is portrayed in this movie is really cool. I mean, as far as the fighting and of course the acting and whatnot. And then you have Brian Tyree Henry, who is Faustus, on the end there. And I guess he's the machinist, if you will, the mechanic, the tech guy of it. And I think overall, it gave each of them, great moments throughout. Again, would have loved to see a little more. Okay. little more development. But again, it makes 2.5 hours as it is, which I'm sure many people were like, "Oh, it felt so drawn on and this and that," which it was a little drawn on, but again, very dense, a lot of exposition, if you will. Um, but anyways, that being said, we basically follow starting with Circe and Sprite. The Eternals through learning kind of the truth of a lot of things of their lives. Again, they believe that they are, again, these immortal warriors that were created by the Celestials. And anyone who's seen Guardians of the Galaxy, um, knows the Celestials are those huge entities like in the original Guardians of the Galaxy, nowhere is the head of a celestial, the big main base. They made Ego, the living planet, a celestial, which I don't quite understand why they made that decision, but whatever. That's canon, MCU wise. But like you said, these big, like humanoid, robotic looking things, which the main one is called Arsham, who in the comic is known as Arsham the Judge. Um, and yeah, so they thought they were created for it, and this was like their first assignment, which we will get into the truth of the matter that they find out through time. um, and we meet Dane Whitman, Kit Harington's character, who in the comics is a character named the Black Knight, who again we will get to near the more spoiler part of this. But like I said, it gives each of them their good little nuggets, good little moments through time. Again, Kingo as a Bollywood actor, I could have watched a lot more of that. Um, you know, um, just I love seeing Gemma Chan the way she plays Circe in general. Angelina Jolie, um, Thena seems to be going crazy, through the movie, which is later, well, I'll go ahead and say revealed later to be past lives intruding, if you will. And again, Faustos's character, he gets sick of a lot of humanity at one point, but then he ends up having a family, a husband, a son, which I'm assuming the son is adopted. I don't know. But yeah, it's a very interesting movie. Even as I'm about to go into spoilers, it's hard to really describe it without, I guess, really processing it. But okay, so that's the basics of it. Now we're going to spoiler territory. So if you have not seen this movie and you're thinking and you're planning on it, and I would recommend seeing it. Um, just again, be prepared. It is more slower pace and it is very dense. Oh, and I forgot, of course, the main thing is their job: protect and guide humans, especially from the deviants, which are, if you saw the trailer again, these wild creatures that destroy and yada 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 yada. Anyways, um, so spoiler talk now. We come to find out, first of all, that the deviants are back, even though they thought they had wiped out the last of them. I think it was 5,000 years ago. Was it five or was it two? 5,000, I think. Um, and uh, as that is happening, and in the beginning, we see Circe has a relationship, as I said, with Dane Whitman. She's a teacher. He's a teacher. Um, and then the deviants show up. Icarus shows up. Um, the group has to get back together. They go to meet with Ajax, Selma Hayek's character, who's their leader, and she's dead. And it's like, okay, the deviants did this. But even as I was watching, I was like, but did they really kill her? And you know, further goes through the movie, and then as the leader, Ajak had this connection to Arishem, the Celestial, as far as getting instructions and stuff, and that's passed on to Circe. So in a sense, they say Ajak chose her to be the leader, and through meetings with them after they start reforming the band, if you will, um, they find out that their whole existence is a lie, um, in the sense of not only were they created by the Celestials, but their whole thought they came from another, that they were from another planet and just doing their bidding and all that stuff. No, they're like made by them, which again, which is comics accurate, but they're kind of introduced like as robots, which is kind of weird. So I'm guessing, especially we start off with Cersei and Dane's relationship. So I'm like, I guess they're kind of like a maybe a biomechanical thing, as obviously they get hurt, they bleed, they get injured and whatnot. So I guess it's more of a kind of biomechanical organism. Um, Even though when Arishem is explaining this, in typical bad guy explaining the plan concept, they're presented as just like truly robots, and I guess that kind of does explain how you see the gold energy patterns when they do things and on their bodies and whatnot. But anyways, so they find out more or less their existence is a lie, and the whole purpose Celestials have for them to do this is to protect the population so that new celestials may be born from the energy of people, which again is kind of nebulous, but okay, um, which end up destroying the planet. So basically, their job is to watch over the sheep as they produce and everything until the, I guess you could say, a new shepherd may be born, emerge, and then they kill all the sheep, you know, um, that help create it. Um, and this, of course, does not sit well with Cersei and some of the Eternals, where others are like, well, especially Icarus, well, that's our job. That's what we're supposed to do. I mean, he's saying, that's what Ajax, the leader, would have wanted us to do, and then we come to find out that Ajax was not killed by the deviants. Well, technically, yes, but it is at Icarus's hand, if you will. He brought her to where the deviants emerged, pushed her literally off a cliff to be attacked, and apparently the deviants kind of like I'm watching Hunter x Hunter, an anime, and anyone who, if they've ever seen or know of Hunter x Hunter, there's an arc that I'm watching right now with these things called chimera ants, where basically when they consume their prey, they take the next generation, the queen's progeny takes on those aspects of them, or I guess any of them that eat whatever they eat, they take on those properties. So similar to that, the deviants or the main deviant, which I believe is called Crow. Um, and again, I know there's a Crow in the comics, which is the head deviant, which the deviants are completely different than they are in the comics. So we'll put that to say that to begin with. But this main deviant just does evolve as he kills certain Eternals, takes on their traits and everything. Which again, it was kind of rushed in my opinion, and again, it's over a 2 hour, 2.5 hour movie. A lot of stuff going on. So if they were gonna do that, I wish it was done better. I guess, but it is what it is. And they hatch a plan whether to try to stop this emerging celestial, which is the emergence, which is referenced in the trailers for anyone who's seen them. And conflict ensues again. Like I said, the truth is revealed overall that Icarus is a betrayer, and shenanigans. Obviously, battles happen. The day is the day is saved. Oh well, and when Icarus betrays them, Sprite, who is in love with him, goes with him as well. And of course, there's a conflict within this family of Eternals, and of course. they end up saving the day, yada yada yada. Um, and some of the really weird stuff comes. So at the end, as they're like, okay, well, we need to go find the other Eternals because apparently, like in the comics, I know there are a lot of Eternals. I mean, there are main ones that have been shown in the comics, but there are like I guess hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of Eternals, and that's kind of referenced through the movie. So I get Makari, Druig, and Thena. After Gilgamesh had been killed, and of course, as I said, Ajak was killed near the beginning. Um, Decide to go into space to find the others to tell them the truth. And Sprite, even though she betrayed them, um, she's forgiven, and there aren't really any repercussions in a sense, but she's given the chance to become a real girl like Pinocchio. Because that's one of the angsty things of her life, which even in the comics, I know that's been a thing I believe in. That trope has been in many things like why, like in vampire lore, it's forbidden to make or frowned upon to make children vampires because they're stuck at that point, of course, physically and, as far as some of those lores, mentally, even though Sprite in this, I think she developed more mentally towards adulthood. She's still physically a child. So of course there's themes of why was I created this way? I mean, if they created us all this way, why would I be created this way to be stuck like this? And it's a legitimate question, which I'm sure many people will wonder. And again, in the comics, as again, I'm not deep in my Eternal lore. I don't know if that was ever addressed, but anyway. Um, and Icarus, in his sorrow for betraying and whatnot, like his namesake, flies too close to the sun or flies too into the sun, which I was kind of like, okay, that's an easy out. Is he dead? I highly doubt it. I really don't think so. But now, what the purpose then of him flying to the sun? Who knows? I guess maybe he thought he would die. I don't know. Um, but like I said, overall, I, I like a lot of the points this movie made. I just wish they could have been expounded upon. But again, that would have been a 3, 4 hour movie or whatever, and maybe that could have been divided into parts better. But overall, I mean, it's a very watchable and serviceable movie. Um, Again, I can't bring myself to say it's. I'm not saying it. I can't bring myself to say it's bad because it's not bad. It's not by any means. Again, yeah, there are things that could have maybe been done a lot better, but again, it's so different from the rest of the MCU. It's hard to even compare it in those terms. But like I said, of course, it is a Marvel movie. We have Marvel connections and whatnot. Um, so especially near the end. So as I said, Dane Whitman, Cersei's boyfriend, love interest at the beginning of the movie, um, lets her know as she, I guess, is getting ready to go back to space or try to figure out well, the rest of them had already go. She's trying to figure out what she's going to do now. Um, you know, Starts to tell her that you're not the only one with secrets. My family has had a lot of things, and Dane Whitman is a character called the Black Knight, who there is a blade called a sword called the Ebony Blade, which during the movie they have it at one point. Dina has it. They ask, "Is that the Ebony Blade?" And she, I think, also refers to it as Excalibur, or I guess they mention it in the same sentence, or maybe they're two different things, but they seem to be the same thing in um, the way that it was said. And comic lore, the Ebony Blade was created by Merlin. So, that being said, that may be, and even there's a comic about King Arthur having a crush on her. but but yes, the Ebony Blade, which is a sword that allows a lot of different powers to its owner, but it's like I said, it's cursed and kind of dark and can take over a person. So right before he tells her that, we see Storm rolls in and the head of Arsham the Judge. Now, okay, this is an Eternal in Earth space, like right before it. Now, thinking as far as again, you would think physics or whatever. that type of gravity or something might have some type of effect on the planet. I don't know that, again, it's comics, so we'll suspend that for right now. But of course, numbers, hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of people, I mean, of course, where they're standing, but I'm sure all over the world obviously see this huge form in the sky, even if it's just briefly. He kidnaps basically the Eternals, and I guess takes them somewhere to determine, look at their memories and stuff to judge if Earth should be allowed to remain. I guess since the Celestials' birth was thwarted by them. Um, so yeah, there are a lot of things that just kind of happen like ba 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 ba, especially near the end. It's like, huh, what? But anyways, and that is the movie pretty much in itself, and it ends there. Then we have our post-credit scenes. Wow. So the first post-credit scene, and again, I already said spoiler, spoiler, spoilers. So you if you have not watched the movie, you've watched you're hearing this to your detriment. Um, Again, we see Makari, Druig, and Thena on their ship, the Domo. And I guess, like I said, heading in space, they're like they haven't heard from the rest of the Eternals on Earth in weeks. So what's wrong? They got to go back. And then we hear a little noise, see some light, and of all characters, deep cuts, obviously kind of related to the Eternals and other interstellar characters, if you will, pops out Pip the Troll. I was like, they did not just have Pip the Troll, who has connections to Adam Warlock, to Gamora in the comics. Obviously, they're going to do a little difference here, but to again, a lot of your spacefaring characters, he's had interactions with a lot of them. So we have Pip the Troll come out, and then after that, we have the Eternal Eros, or Star Fox, who is the brother of Thanos, come out. And I'd wondered about if once Eternals were coming out, I'd wonder if they were going to do this. I was really wondering if they were going to do this, but I guess they're going there. Now, in the comics, of course, there's always contention with Eros and Thanos. Again, they're brothers. Thanos just, I mean, Eros looks humanish as the rest of the most of the Eternals do. Thanos, who by definition is an Eternal, or was they're born to eternal parents. Um, Thanos, the reason he looks the way he does instead of humanish is he has the deviant gene. As I said, the deviants in the comics are well, not slightly, they are different, completely different than what we get in this movie. But anyways, um, but yeah, so as he's introduced, the brother of Thanos, and even though there's a comic, Thanos had a brother, you know, so like I said, Star Fox is a very interesting character. I've only seen him a couple times, and like I said, have learned a bit of history over the last couple years about who he is, his powers, and kind of what he's done. So it's very interesting that they brought him in, and Star Fox basically says, I know where they've taken the where Arishem took the Eternals, like so we can go rescue them. So there's that. And that opens up a whole lot of crap, possibly. Um, and then we have our second post credit scene. So we have Dane Whitman, who, as I mentioned before, is the Black Knight. There's this cursed blade. He's in front of this case with his family crest on it. You can see he's kind of like really hesitant. He opens it. You see the ebony blade, wrapped up, and but you see the kind of like a rippling effect to say, the sword's power and everything. He's, debating whether he wants to touch this because he knows what can happen if he does. And then we hear a voice that says, "Are you sure you're ready for that, Mr. Whitman?" And it goes black. So of course, the big question is, who is that voice? So even though I don't, know for actual complete confirmation, thanks to like I watched some stuff on my ride home. Grace Randolph from Beyond the Trailer, who I love watching her reviews and whatnot, reactions reviews, and Watch Mojo as they were talking about some of the things people may have missed from the Eternals. They brought that up too. Supposedly, that was the voice of Mahershala Ali, who is going to be our Blade in the MCU. And that kind of makes sense because, again, you're talking the mystical and everything. And, again, we have no date for Blade yet. Supposedly, one of the other mystic characters, Werewolf by Night, has been recently cast. And, like, there's a Halloween special that's coming out next year. Like, there's going to be the Guardians of the Galaxy Christmas special. So I have to wonder, since we have no announcement date for Blade yet, if we're going to see him pop up somewhere soon. Um, I mean, now we might not. I mean, if that is indeed Mahershala Ali, which, I mean, between those two places, I'm guessing that pretty much is. I think Chloe Zhao, the director, did mention that. Um, Again, that opens up a whole lot. Um, yeah, it's just like, well, of course, when are we going to see Black Knight next? Is it going to be Eternals 2 if they have Eternals 2, which again, like I said, I'm sure if Marvel wants to do it, whether it makes a lot of money or not, they're going to do it because Kevin Feige has stories he wants to tell. Or will we see him like pop into a Disney Plus series or something? Again, we have Moon Knight coming up, which is supernatural-ish. So I mean, we could see Blade, we could see the Black Knight, we could see Werewolf by Night. Supposedly he's in there and other things, which again we don't have a date yet, but it's supposed to be next year sometime. So, but to have them this early, it just kind of makes me go, hmm. It's kind of like Venom, Let There Be Carnage. Again, if you haven't seen Venom, Let There Be Carnage, and you're planning on to, well, you haven't seen it by now, I doubt you're going to go see it and wait till streaming. So, all spoilers. So, at the very ending of Venom, Let There Be Carnage, Venom and Eddie Brock get transported to the MCU. Um, I'm guessing by Doctor Strange's spell in Spider-Man No Way Home, which comes out next month. Um, And as I said, the question people wonder, is Venom going to be in Spider-Man No Way Home? I would assume he is in some capacity, whether he is part of the story amongst with the other characters from other universes. Again, because he's not even really a villain; he's an anti-hero in this uh, Sony cinematic whatever universe. Um, but the main reason I say that, and if not a post-credit scene or something where they meet, is why would they have this post-credit scene in Venom, which just came out right before Spider-Man is about to come out in December, and of course they have Spider-Man in the post-credit scene. There has to be some connection. So similarly, I'm like, why would we hear Mahershala Ali? Would we hear Blade? And of course, they didn't let us see him. But why would they even put that little, earworm, if you and that give us that little surprise if he's not popping up somewhere soon? I don't know. Maybe I'm just overthinking it. Maybe we won't see him in any form for another couple years, but I wouldn't be surprised. So, anyway, so that is my review of very brief review of Eternals. Um, I think I'll go ahead and say it. I mean, it's a good movie. I mean, not great, but it's a good movie in the sense of what it is, the story I think it was trying to tell. Yeah, there were a lot of things I think that could have been different, but again, this is made by an Oscar-winning director, so maybe after I think about it a little bit more, I'll be like, you know what? That was really, really good. And it's just very different. And I think once you wrap your head around how different it is and try to put that to the side, then you can think more about its merits, about it being a good versus bad film. But anyways, As always, I appreciate any of those who have decided to watch, listen to my rambling, and as always, I will say thank you.